Hello and welcome. This is Newfoundland and Labrador Studies 2205. I'm Miss Fleming here with you. This is Unit 1 on Culture, Section 2, Lesson 4 on History and Culture. I'm really excited. I love the study of history, so let's get going. Before we begin, I have something for you to ponder, as I have for the past few lessons. This is a quote, and it says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." It's accredited to George Santayana, and he's a philosopher, poet, and cultural critic. This quote has been heard many, many times in various forms, but it basically means the same thing. If we don't study the past, if we do not remember it, then we are condemned to be stuck in a cycle of repeating our past mistakes. So let's begin by thinking about the past. Our lives today are very different from our great-great-grandparents, completely different. Not just in our technology, but in the way we view the world. Our expectations of what we're able to do in the areas of transportation, communication, medicine are all drastically different. Now, this is a non-exhaustive list, but our great-great-grandparents, their lives encapsulated a much smaller area than ours does today. And part of that is thanks to what we call globalization and advancements in various other things. But when we think about the past, it is important to refrain from something called presentation. Now, you might be wondering, wow, that's a historical term? Yes, it is. And what it means in the historical context is we should not interpret past experiences based on present-day values and ideas, okay? When we look at the past, we should keep in mind the context of that period of time. When we do this, we remain neutral and unbiased. This doesn't mean I don't want it to get misconstrued. It doesn't mean that we do not identify the issues and the mistakes of the past. But we have to keep the context in the back of our minds in order to evaluate those events from a critical but neutral eye. Okay? It is hard, but I promise you, we will practice. Okay? I also wanted to talk to you about the difference between history and heritage. When we talk about the past, two words come to mind. That's history and heritage. Although they are two different things, they are both useful in examining culture. We have to use both in order to get a bigger picture. History is the record or narrative of past events. But heritage is what is preserved and passed down from one generation to the next. So things like our traditions and our different cultural pastimes from our ancestors. History is just the record of events that have occurred. It is impossible to examine the entirety of the past. It's too much. So it is important for historians to be guided by the idea of something called significance. And significance is important experiences that have deep consequences for many people over a long period of time. I want you to think about where you live, okay? Think about also the languages that you speak. Think about your nationality. It is likely that significant events from the past played a significant role in those parts of your culture. There are important reasons why you live where you live, why you speak what you speak, and it's important to acknowledge those events. Examining history and heritage helps us have an understanding of the way lifestyles are today. This can be challenging because our knowledge of the past is limited, actually, in the information that has survived to the present. We must look at historical information in terms of quality and quantity. The greater the quantity of information, the more we have, the easier it is to create a comprehensive view of the experience. Likewise, having quality information that is reliable and accurate is also important. I'm reminded of a quote that I learned when I first started studying history in university, and it said something to the effect of history being written by the winners And it really stuck with me because with that standpoint, there are a lot of things from the past that we don't have the record of. A lot of history of particular people, because people who perceived themselves as the winners wrote down their accounts from their point of view. And because of that, there's a lot of information that has not survived to present day. So speaking of, let's talk about what's called primary and secondary sources. Often when we think about historical sources, we think about tangible things, so things like documents, images, and artifacts. These types of information are called primary or sometimes secondary sources of information, and they're often considered as fact. But it is important to remember that historical sources are the result of human actions. So like I just mentioned, they are written and taken from a person's point of view, from a person's actions, from things that they did. Seldom will an author think that their accounts will be used as historical material in the future. Therefore, these sources are usually incomplete, or they're biased. Biased meaning from their point of view, from a particular point of view. So people don't write things down from their point of view, thinking it's going to be a historical document. But it is important to remember that individuals and their memories are also valid historical sources. While oral histories have limitations, they can be used to help gain deeper insight into an issue or an event. Alright, now it's time for review. I have some activities for you to do in Brightspace, including a wonderful artist profile, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you next time.